Hey everyone, welcome to Dad on Arrival Function. I'm Stefan, this is Dr. Lori Baudino. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
And we are talking about tips for parents today in order to calm ourselves when we get into those moments where we're not entirely calm. And I wish they didn't happen as often as they do, but there are these moments. Tell me I'm not alone as a dad
You're
and just being
totally
like,
not
I just
alone.
want to reach across sometimes and pat Indy on the head like she's the best thing ever, and I don't know sometimes how to get myself out of those moments when I'm in that space.
Yes, all of our children know that we can get like that sometimes.
Right.
So there are wonderful tools on how to use our words and our cognition to think about, like, it's not personal, saying a mantra to yourself, like this too shall pass, right? There's these kind of go-to phrases, but sometimes telling ourselves isn't enough. And so again, I use that mind-body lens, using the movement in the body. And so I like to tell parents to kind of give yourself permission to tap into where that feeling's coming from. And I can identify. It
won't get worse, will it? If I tap into that spot right here in the chest, it's not going to get.
It might, but the good thing is emotions are transient. They come in and they go out.
That's right.
And it's so much easier. I imagine you can relate to this. It's so much easier to change a sensation than if someone told you just like to be happy, or feel angry. Like if someone tells you how to feel or
then
how
on
to
top
change
of it,
it.
somebody's telling you what to do, and you're gonna be worse.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be worse.
It feels bad,
exactly,
But if you realize you're getting heated, like temperature is rising, you could change the sensation and get cool. You could take off a layer, you could get some water, you can change your environment, go outside. And that's something that you can actually do, you have control over. And while we move in different ways, we have control over our bodies. We're the only ones moving ourselves. We're the only ones that are also controlling our thoughts. But the movement's really helpful. So we think about triggers in terms of our sensory experience of them. So we think about, are you being triggered by the noise you're hearing? Then, if it's too loud, change the sound. Or really tap into what you're hearing. See if you can differentiate different sounds in it. Maybe it's not you only can hear your child screaming, but you also can hear cars rushing by. You can hear the fan, you can hear the dog, you can hear the TV.
So it's awareness then, really getting aware of your environment and the space you're in. I often find when I go back afterwards and think about those moments, I realize it's the other stresses that usually are showing up for me that are really so then it's more like what Indy does becomes the tipping point for all of the rest of the things that are going on in my life. Right. So is it more like, using myself as an example, but parents in general, just finding a way to manage that stress level or that load ahead of time in a better way so I don't get to that space?
Possibly. I use the word empower. I don't believe in distraction because even when we're distracted and we're sidetracked to something else or we are managing something, it feels like we're kind of suppressing it a little bit.
Right.
And we still have these feelings. So we can empower ourselves to realize we have all these tools to use. We have all our senses to use. So if you are being triggered by the sound, then we're aware of that. If it's something visual, you're realizing you're mad at your child because they're not listening to you, but really it's because the environment is so out of control and you just want it to be organized, you like your house clean, or you like things in certain places, then you have an option to focus on what you're visually seeing, and you can either change it and say, hey, I need these things lined up like this, or you can join the mess and say, hey, you know what, let's just dive in and throw in my dirty clothes too.
It's the way it's going to be, exactly.
Right? So it gives you this empowering of it's just about movement, it's just about your senses, and you have some choices and control around it.
I like this empowering thing. It's like a macro tool, because we talk about tools, but empowering is empowering your other tools to actually get to work for you. But it's this overreaching macro tool that would remind me to be oh, hey, I have the ability to do all these things, or I have the tools within me. I just have to empower them or turn them on, as it were, to make it happen.
Yeah, and also just that you are supposed to be feeling these ways. So our nervous system is programmed to go and respond to life in terms of, is it safe or is it a threat? If it's a threat, we pull back. We fight, flight, or freeze, we attack it, or we run away, or we freeze up. If it's a safety, we go towards it, we enjoy it, we embrace it, right? All those things. So when we're having a reaction, if we tap into, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm not bad,
right,
but I'm trying to survive here, and something is sending me a signal that I'm under stress, then our sensory system can join in and say, hey, you've got some backup here.
Right.
You've got some a team
reading
with
your
you.
environment, exactly, and you have the capability to look after those things. All right, so once I get myself to a calmer place, then we start to focus on our children. How do we read how they're reading us in that scenario. Because I noticed that Indy does pick up on when I'm stressed, and she does little things to try and help me to break the ice, to get me back to square one. How do I do a more effective job of reading her body language in those scenarios and learning from them?
Well, it's fantastic just to be even thinking about how do I read my child, right? So even if you're just curious about your child, that's where it begins. It's just you're just this whimsical curiosity. You're exploring what they're showing you, and children have so much information that they're showing us. And when we slow down and look at it, we don't actually have to be as creative as we think we have to be, or as intelligent, or have all the answers. Our child's doing it. So if your child's running around and they need you, you're talking to someone, let's say, and they're running around and trying to make noise, and they're jumping on you and jumping off you, and you're thinking like, why can't you just sit still? Well, they're trying to communicate that they would like to move with you.
They want to be involved, right?
They want to be involved. So you can either join them and move with them, have them come closer, connect with them for a second, and that will buy you time to get back into the conversation.
Oh.
But it's just a moment. It's about seeing that they're giving you all the information that you need. Then you don't have to be like, what is wrong with you? Why are you jumping around? You don't even ask the why. You just say, you are jumping around.
Right.
I see you.
You make it obvious. You see that space, right? It's so valuable. For more on reading your child's body language, you can check out the podcast that we did with Dr. Lori, because there was all kinds of great tips in there on reading your child and what they're trying to tell you through their body language and their movements. Getting back to us, as this episode is about just us calming things down. When do we go and reevaluate at the end? We talked about, okay, how do we use our tools to get us back into a space? How do we then bring our child back into that safe space with us? Do we reevaluate right afterwards? Do we take stock at the end of the day? How do you look back at your day in those moments and then turn them into a real learning experience for the next time something like that happens?
There is this switch that has to be turned on, this regulation, we call it, this balance in your child and in yourself. And so one important piece is to understand that you have time, that you have permission to come back at it. There's no deadline. Like, you have the rest of the day. You could come back to it days later. So each child is unique. Sometimes we try to jump into a conversation and try to explain to the child what happened and apologize. Mm-hmm. And in those moments, the child might not be ready. So, they don't have to make eye contact with you to say they're ready, but they do need to show that they are joining you in that conversation. So maybe it's a physical contact that you're going through, and you're kind of laying with one another. Mm-hmm. Maybe you start to realize that you're all in a place of like laughing and talking, you're smiling.
The best
so
places.
Maybe there's some more breath in the interaction. That might be giving you information that this is a time to connect on it. And I would say less is more. I can go on a tangent too of trying to explain myself,
right.
But I'm really trying to explain myself for me. The child doesn't necessarily need all that information.
Right.
And then also, I think it's important, kind of flip the page on this, but I think it's also important that if you get triggered by something and you have a strong feeling about something, while it's important to say sorry for using a loud voice or not being our best selves, it's also okay to be saying like, that is what I meant, right. And I was serious.
I think that giving people permission to do that is a really big deal, because I really am hard on myself in that scenario. It's okay for that to actually be what you mean in that spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because sometimes when we quickly say sorry, it actually omits what just happened, and the child gets this confusing message of like, you said you were not liking that, but then you said sorry, so that means you didn't mean it? Right. What's the truth here?
Okay, right. It's
so
about
you
clarity
can say,
and communication.
I absolutely needed you to do that, or I wasn't okay with you using whatever it was, or right. The voice you use, whatever it may be. And next time you can just do it differently. You can just use a calmer voice. We don't have to necessarily explain out every little moment that we weren't our best selves.
I'm thinking about that because I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I do that all the time. So much good stuff. Thank you, as always, Dr. Lori Bodino, for being here. Just trying to give us tips, tools. Empower, I think, is the lesson of the episode here. Empower your own tools in terms of bringing you back into that space where we can interact on a more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Conscious and present way.
Conscious and present way. Thank you very much to the,
And conscious and present expert. Means you can have strong feelings. You don't have to be perfect. It's not like just this peacefulness. Mm-hmm. You can have variations.
Awesome. So helpful. And if you have any questions for Dr. Lori, don't forget, send them in the comments. Let us know what you want to talk about. Send us ideas for future episodes. I'm sure that there are things about your children you would love to know, and she's the person that's going to teach us. So thank you so much.